Welcome to the truth about the budget. As I told you before the break, I'm very well connected. I know people in Delhi, etc., etc., and I've gotten a personal commitment that whatever these four beautiful women suggest will not only be taken seriously, but will be implemented in short order. So now you've all been saying that all talk, etc., etc. Okay, let's be tight. Let's each say one thing that you want done. And let's be reasonable. Let's say in the next 12 months. All right, Beenu.
Okay, I know you've asked us to be reasonable and give one thing, but I've never been reasonable before, and I'm not going to start now.
All right.
So I have a laundry list of things that I would like.
We'll start it.
Okay, to start with, I would have liked to have seen, what some people would call a greater sophistication in the manner of incentivizing behaviors, right? So rather than saying, put more money to this or put more money to that or asking from the government to give, I'm saying, I think the entrepreneurs of India have been the ones that have really made this country. So why not incentivize the correct behaviors or the right values in those people? For example, for a company who is investing in ecologically responsible practices, they're doing the right things because they choose to. I think that is a behavior that should be rewarded with tax incentives. I think that if you are promoting rural craft development and sustaining communities, I think that's something that should be incentivized. I think that is a way that's not asking you to spend money, but rather to reward the right behaviors.
All right, fair enough.
I think one of the things in the budget that was missing was health care in this country, and now hospitals are being taxed. So I think definitely putting more focus into the health care, and also women, making sure that women are given incentive to go get an education, become entrepreneurs, tax incentives for if they have children to go and work. So I think that those two angles.
I think though that these things are happening, but perhaps, of course we all want it yesterday, but I think, I don't have the numbers with you, but I think if you look at the amount of girls enrollment in schools, it's gone up, etc., etc. But Tika,
it's getting in the right, it's definitely getting
but we want acceleration.
But just a little bit more direct,
And not just that, I'm sorry, I'm going to take off on what you said for just a moment, just to say that, I think a budget is also a statement of your values, right?
Exactly.
Putting your money where your mouth is. So, this is a statement to say these are the things that we think are important. So yes, maybe a lot has been done in terms of rewarding or encouraging women entrepreneurship. But I think when you actually make it part of the conversation in the budget, it's really showing a commitment to it on a larger level.
Exactly.
Which way that's what we're doing.
Right, exactly.
No, absolutely. I think Beenu's completely right when she says that a lot of it is sort of about showing where the areas that they think that they actually care about. Because we did talk earlier about how you have all these other huge overlying issues, and so maybe it seems like going green seems like a much smaller thing. But if that's not something that they put out there saying it's important, then I think we have a basic problem.
All right.
I think there is an immediate need for accountability. There have just been too many scams, too many people getting off scot-free, and it's just not on. I mean, that is what is frustrating, and that's why, people are losing any kind of belief or trust in the system. And people should be brought to task.
That's another one on my laundry list is let a few heads roll. I think we're in an incredible time in this generation where we're watching recently from, the public pressure put on from the, global financial fraud that occurred some years ago, from what's happening in the Middle East with the monarchs there, from what's happened in the corruption that was exposed last year in India. So there's been a lot of public pressure, and it's made for a lot of conversation. But now, in none of those areas have we seen the heads roll. So I hope this year,
is what you're saying.
Lead by example.
This year,
I'll tell you, one of the things I've always felt, and frankly, I agree with you 100% that is the key. Now, the budget itself may not be the right place for that, but it could well be, because as you say, it's a statement of intent. One of the thoughts I've always had is, India is, there's 1 billion and some people, huge numbers of people have made huge amounts of money and are living it up, and more power to them. I don't think any of them, let's say you do a cutoff of 20 lakhs. Everybody making more than 20 lakhs a year has to pay a surcharge of 2%, right? I mean, I know I wouldn't mind. And I'm damn sure, it wouldn't really materially affect the life of a lot of people. But people will still object. Why? Because they say, hey baby, you're going to take the money and
nobody likes
put it in your pocket.
You're right.
So the key really is to come up with accountability.
Exactly.
I mean, that's what you say, right?
But I'm also a bit, it's hard for me to agree with what you just said because I am a fiscal conservative at heart, right? So I don't believe that the right answer is always just raise a little bit more tax, right? I do think that snip off, some of the waste and find the money there
first. My point is you do it first. Agreed.
Right?
You do that first. But I'm saying, look, if you need money for something, let's say one of you was talking about healthcare. Yeah. Let's say you want to deliver the highest quality universal healthcare. India is a huge country, lots of, if you believed, I mean, if somebody came to you and said, look, I'm doing something great, will you give me, 8,000 rupees? You will from time to time, right? But the point is you have to believe that they're going to do it, right? Which is really the point you're making. And I think that really the first thing, and this to me, well, I said there were a lot of great things about the budget, the gap was one thing they could have done, is they could have announced that the CAG, which is, big news today, is going to audit all the political parties.
Absolutely.
Because that's where the action starts and ends.
I think you're absolutely right. If you take the budget as one arm, you take the regulation as another, and you take the criminal justice system as another, and those three arms come together, I think it could be a really powerful turning point in change in the country at the moment.
And then let's not even get into the fact that our judicial system is the way it is. So
right.
Now listen, all you girls, I appreciate you're saying, that look, you're willing to get into it, but the system is just such a mess, right? And you don't believe anything will happen. But maybe, hopefully this show will get all of us more activated, because really, the truth is, democracy is a full-time job. You got to be in it all the time. You either, a phrase I love to use, but I couldn't use on television, so I won't. but you got to, put up or shut up in a more modest way. So all of us really need to be more participatory.
Well, we have such a young population.
Absolutely.
That this really is the time to get the youth, incentivized and excited about the future.
I mean, just look at this. The three of you, or all three, lived, grew up overseas, studied overseas, but you're all back.
True.
So it's clear that in the bigger context, I mean, this is where it is. And let me raise my optimist flag again. Is that my point is, when you see things like that happening, they're happening because subconsciously that
there's
this
momentum.
is really where it is. You need a critical mass of people that are working for change and that believe. I mean, to my mind, the minimum you got to do is believe.
That's happening.
See, that's my job today, is to get all of you to end up being optimists. Okay, I want to ask a question. Most families, women run the house, women do the budget. India, the government puts the budget together, and it's mostly men. I mean, there is Sonia Gandhi, but maybe it is women running it. But suppose what do you think would happen if the women were making the financial budget for the country?
Green, health, education.
Yeah.
Those would stand out.
Anybody else?
I would cut down the defense budget, enlist women with PMS, send them to war, because they'd be mad enough to fight and retain water.
All right. But you talked about defense.
Yeah.
Anybody want to sort of,
I think defense creates business, it creates industry, it's necessary. I just don't think that it needs to be over-trumpeted.
It's a little bit over-trumpeted.
I agree.
In other words, you're saying we don't need that much money.
No, we need it, but maybe a slight portion could have been allocated differently.
Right. Like relatively, things like healthcare and education should be sort of fighting.
Yeah, I guess ultimately it all comes back to the same point. If defense spending were clean, we get the same amount for much less money.
But I also think our security forces need to be better looked after.
Without a question.
Whether it's compensation to the armed forces or our police or the fire brigade, I think there's just not enough being done for man and machine. Just better living conditions, because then you would actually address the entire vicious circle of corruption, and the whole thing that goes on.
And I think another problem also is the separation between certain things are for the center, certain for the state, some are for the city. That creates a lot of confusion. Everything falls kind of between the cracks, But yeah. So, another possibility we could do, I told you that the Prime Minister agreed to do something. Another thing he told me was to ask each of you, would you each be willing to write a check for a few hundred crores?
Sure, if you give it to me, I'll write it.
I did want to just come back to Shauna to something you said. You brought up one of our greatest assets or potential assets is our youth population, right? So I thought it was really interesting in the budget when the one demographic that got a tax break was the senior citizens, right? So I didn't understand the idea behind that, and I don't know if any of you had any idea.
I do believe that the seniors need to be looked after. I mean, it's a case of people that are not going to be productive or contributing to families. Life is changing all across the board in this country, and I think they need to be protected. They do not have.
My question was almost more sociological in nature, in the sense that, do you think it's an expectation that as India becomes more developed, that we have a history and a culture of looking after our elders, and is there an expectation that will not be as much, and maybe that is why?
It is already starting to change in the
Except this is what I'd like to come in on. Your concern, which is that, as we become American, in a manner of speaking, old people will be put out to the farm. But see, I always say, the best thing about India, right, is that God lives here. Anywhere you go, you can't hide from him, man. He's here, he's there, he's everywhere. Another great thing about God is a wonderful creature. So I think your concern, while it may happen to some extent, I think this is really going to be our real staying power. That is not going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know if that's my concern.
And in fact, you see, family is family, God is God, India is India, and the budget this year has at least, I hope, got 4 converts.
Yes, absolutely.
All right? So thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you.
You're all just a joy. We need to do this more often.
Definitely.
All right? Great. Thank you.
Thank you.